Hey, are you feeling bloated, maybe depressed, maybe some anxieties, stressed out a little bit? Your hormones feel like they're just running amok? Well, maybe you're entering menopause. Yeah, I said that. Guys, even you might be entering something like menopause. I had no clue that there's anything like that until I had a conversation with my guest today, Lisa Triggs, and she's the author of The Menopause MindShift. That's the mind shift, not a mindset. So keep that in mind. It's the menopause mind shift. So we're going to talk all about menopause. But men, guys, we talk about us as well and what we go through and what we experience if our spouse is going through that, or when we experience it. And there is a term for that, which Lisa's going to fill us in on. So please sit back, enjoy, and remember, if you're a pet owner, please be responsible. And if your pet's spayed or neutered. All right, let's do it.
Welcome to Amazing People, Amazing Things with your host, Chuck Tuck.
Lisa, thanks for joining us today because it's a pretty darn important topic, and you went through it. A lot of women will be going through it if they're not going through it right now. Men maybe kind of sort of go through something maybe similar, but we're going to really talk about women, and this is something that I have no idea what it's about nor how it feels, and it's called menopause. And you are,
Ooh.
yeah, ooh, is that a taboo
The
word?
forbidden topic. Ooh.
Yep.
Oh my
But
goodness.
hey, the good thing
And,
is you do have that book out called The Menopause Mindset. So we want to touch on that. But Lisa, tell us about you and why, I might ask some personal questions, but how and why did you write this book?
oh boy. So I've been married for a really long time, like 30, almost 33 years. And, every relationship has its ups and downs and all that kind of stuff. But the book kind of came about. Actually, my husband was one of the big supporters of it. Kind of said, I think you should do this. There's a gap here between medical science, right, and health, and that's the mindset part. And that's what I went through. I went through a really rough time for about 7 years. Depression, all the, fatigue, insomnia, you name it. There's a list of like 30 symptoms. And then I started to kind of do some work within, and things started to change. And I thought, you know what, I'm kind of on something here. So that's kind of how the book came about. And I kind of coined it a mind shift, partly because actually the word mindset is used a lot. And even though we refer to it as mindset, a change of mindset, I am calling it a mind shift. It's a menopause because you are shifting. You're shifting the way you think. You're shifting the way you behave in some ways. You're shifting your life in some cases for some people.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you then, because is there such a thing as like pre-menopause? Do you begin to feel certain things? Is your body, it's changing? You're going, today I don't feel like I did yesterday. I feel, again, I'm a guy. I'm coming from this area. I feel bloated or I'm more depressed. So what's this? Is there such a thing as a pre-menopause period? And what's that feeling like?
It's called perimenopause. And for some women, believe it or not, and I was one of them, it can last for up to 10 years. Wow. So, and actually, in some cases, as it was in mine, but not all, life events, stress can actually trigger it early. So I was about 38 and we had, a little bit of family stuff going on that was quite stressful. And then all of a sudden I noticed I was starting to gain a little weight, and then a little more. And I was not able to get it off. I was working out, I was watching what I ate, and I kept gaining instead of losing. So that period is called perimenopause, and that's when our hormones are shifting our estrogen is starting to lower. And if we don't really understand what's going on, it can be way overlooked by even yourself as well as your doctors, because you don't always know that that's what it is.
Yeah, with the symptoms that you're talking about, it seems like it could be any number of things, and especially if this perimenopause is triggered by outside things, stress and things like that. Uh, Again, being a
In
guy,
some
I would have
cases,
never known, but I would imagine even for women, you wouldn't know because you would think, oh, I'm just stressed, and this is a stress weight gain or whatever it might be.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And sometimes even, I guess the best way to really check and see if that's what it is to go to your doctor and get some blood work done. But I have met a couple women who have actually showing signs and symptoms of starting the perimenopause time, but their blood work is still fairly normal. So it can be really, really difficult to try and pinpoint to say, yes, this is what exactly is happening to me. And in a lot of cases, it's the mental aspect as well, you know, moods and things like that. And then, of course, you know, our womanly stuff kind of starts to change as well around, you know, that time.
Yeah, it's okay if you say certain words. We're not going to judge.
You know, okay, a woman's cycle might start to change, you know, or
There we go, the
monthly.
menstrual cycle
And you know
thing,
what?
right?
Yeah, yeah. From the other side of it, actually, your spouse or family members might notice a little bit of change in you as well, right? And say, you know, is there something going on here? You know, why do you seem so stressed all the time? You know,
You're not as nice
kind
to
of,
me
yeah.
anymore.
Right? Yeah. Why isn't she as, you know, what's the word? Romantic, you know, as she used to be, kind of thing. She's not in the mood, you know, quite as much as she might, you know, have been before. So, and that can put a
Yeah.
real strain on marriages. It really can. I have, of course, during the process, I, you know, looking for support, joined Facebook groups. There's one,
Mhm.
there's like over 150,000 women. And in this group, and I was surprised to see that so many are still saying about how it's affecting their relationships and, you know, other areas of their lives.
Yeah, because I would imagine that, you're in a relationship and there is that physical aspect, whether it's something that they took part regularly or not regularly, but the other person would begin to notice this is irregular for what we used to do. Um, so I guess women should also be aware of that if their significant other says, "Hey, there's this weird change in you." It's like we're not getting in bed and doing it anymore, or why, you know. And it's not
Yeah,
that I
yeah.
don't
Are
love
you
you; it's
okay?
just
You know,
because I'm
notice.
going right. Are you okay? What's happening?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
um,
It can be hard. It can really put a strain on marriages. Believe it or not, I you know have seen some women make comments about ditching their significant other, ditching their spouse. You know, I don't have to worry about the stress of, you know, him bugging me for sex, you know, or something like that, as they put it. I got rid of him. I was like, oh my gosh. Well, I'm going to assume that there was more than just menopause going on in those cases.
yeah. Well, I would imagine then this is where pre and during and post there is that real importance of self love, right?
Oh, yes. That's where it kind of rooted for me, because it was something that I hadn't really thought about before, you know, and that was just me. And everybody's brought up differently, and so to speak, you know, I'm the youngest of 7 children, and I know I was loved, you know, the best way my parents knew how. And even, you know, my older siblings were kind of, you know, motherly to me when I was little. But it can be really, really different when it comes to your personal relationships and how you view yourself. And that was one thing that I went through. I kind of had to go back, you know, in order to move forward, because some women, I've heard, say that stuff they thought they dealt with all of a sudden is bothering them again during this time. And,
Okay.
a little bit of that happened to me. So I was like, what the heck? So I had to go back a little bit and kind of really remind myself to let go of that shit. Stop carrying it around. And it was one really big step into moving forward and being healthier, in a healthier mindset. And that spawned, one link to another, to another, to another. And eventually, I wrote a book.
Did you go through any type of self-blaming or blaming others through this period?
Um, a little bit. Everybody's life circumstance is different, right? So there
Mm-hmm.
might be things that you're holding on to that you might blame yourself for. And I did a bit of that, I felt guilty for some things that I had no control of. So
Right.
that was a big thing to try and get past, that I was really holding on to. And even with my personal relationship, my husband started to go through his own thing, which we can talk about, now or later. But in my case, made my journey even that much more difficult, which sent me, spiraling down and more to the depressive state.
Yeah, let's touch on that with the spouse person. But before we do that, I just want to make sure that folks know that your book is called The Menopause MindShift, and your website that folks can go to is themenopausemindshift.com. So really easy. The book is the name of your URL and vice versa. So, and you do have a lot of good
Yeah.
information on there. But um, yeah, the significant other. Let's touch on that a little bit. How were they behaving? How was he behaving? What was going on there?
Oh boy. That this is when I originally had the idea for the book. Actually, this is kind of where it stemmed from. Was it was going to be specifically about my unique journey because of what my husband started to go through. But then I had to kind of step back because there's certain things you just need to keep private, and he has a job and all that kind of stuff, right? So I wrote what I wrote, and then he read it and gave me his blessing. During my menopause area, after I was 47, which at that time it's called, you start full menopause. That's when your cycles completely stop, and once you've stopped for like a year and not had anything, that's when you're considered menopause. So I was at that stage, and my husband wasn't quite feeling himself, noticed some physical changes that were going on. And so he went to the doctor, and they did a few blood tests. And it was discovered that he had a pituitary tumor, right? And the pituitary gland helps regulate hormones and different things. And in one of the things that a tumor can do, it presses on the pituitary gland, and in men, it increases their prolactin. In women, prolactin is what helps us nurse babies, produce the milk. But in
Mm-hmm.
men, it's actually, in some cases, I've heard not known what it's for, but I did look it up, and it more has to do with hormone regulation, especially your testosterone and things like that it helps with. So so his was a little off, and the doctor prescribed him some medication, and so he went on that. And at first we looked it up a little bit and said, okay, the normal side effects. But the longer he was on it, I could see some changes in his behavior, kind of thing. And that went on for 5 years.
That's a long
So
time.
during that period is when I went down and down and down, and I kept was under so much personal stress, right? And I just gained, I gained a total of almost 40 pounds, which So, and my stomach was ballooned out as if I looked like I was 4 or 5 months pregnant by the time I was 50. So, we did the best we could to try and get through this period. And so, after 5 years, had gone by, we were at a counselor's office and going through what the issues were. And then, we mentioned the pituitary tumor, and he said, are you taking anything for it? And my husband said, yeah, I'm on Dostonex. And he went, Dostonex? Oh, okay. That explains a lot. And then proceeded to tell us other side effects, which are ADD-like symptoms, gambling addiction, sex addiction, things like that. So that made things a lot clearer what was going on in our personal life.
Wow.
Yeah. So, so after that, we, a lot of discussion because, you look at what else can treat this thing, and that is the most recommended way to treat the pituitary tumor is to take that particular medication. But the funny thing is, Dostonex is actually treats Parkinson's disease. But one of the side effects is that it helps reduce a pituitary tumor.
Wow.
So he went off of that, and then it's been a little bit of a roller coaster. That's when you and your spouse are both menopausal, and that's fun.
Well, I would imagine, and this
Yeah.
is just me thinking out loud, that's that period of mind shift, and it's both for men and women if you're couples. And I would have to, this is easier said than done, is accept the fact that, aside from any medical things like the pituitary cancer and things like that, tumor, that it's a natural thing as you age for certain things to happen or certain things to not work the way they used to be when you're 20 years old. So,
Right.
and I think for certain things for men, it might be, I hate saying more difficult, but it's very difficult for men to accept certain things. Um,
Absolutely.
so,
When you're kind of questioning your manhood, so to speak,
hmm
right, and you're starting to, what's the word? Feel like, or experiencing some more feminine attributes, kind of thing. It's actually hard on both.
yeah,
It's hard as from both perspectives, right? It's hard for him to go through, for me to watch, and then vice versa. What was happening to me was hard for him to watch and me to go through. So
yeah, and I think
I just
that's,
refer to it as a roller coaster.
oh, I would imagine it's the definite roller coaster.
I was just going to say it's andropause, which is what they call male menopause, is a natural thing to go through. Like you said, there men do reach a stage where your libido does drop, and testosterone does start to drop, and that's completely normal. But when you get something that's affecting it more dramatically and before it's time, so to speak, then you know it's an issue. It's not normal, for a man in andropause to, start to grow a breast,
Right.
or what seems like a breast anyway, fatty tissue, kind of thing.
hmm
And those are just signs and symptoms of what the pituitary tumor, sorry, can do, right? That's just one of the physical attributes that would happen to a man. But it's absolutely normal, right? And the funny thing is, is when men reach this stage, they will go on, take Viagra or whatever it is, some kind of
Right.
other supplement or all that kind of thing to make sure he can maintain his manlyhood, so to speak. But women, well, I mean, other than hormone therapy, but that's a whole other story if we want to go there or not, because not everybody can take it, not everybody wants to take it, and again, it's synthetic, and I'm not
Yeah.
You know, medicine is wonderful, the medical fields, you know, absolutely science. I hope to marry science and mindset.
Well, I think, again, like we're saying, a lot of this, it's a natural progression of aging or of life in itself. But there's also, when you say that it happens prematurely, no pun in that one. Um, when it happens, things happen prematurely, there's a lot of social stigmatism, I think, on both sides, men and women, as far as, oh, you can't perform or you're going through that, what's wrong with you type of thing. And I think somehow, and hopefully your book is going to change everybody's mindset on helping others go through this and accepting what is happening to yourself and to those around you. Do you think that there's like a little social stigma to this?
To
It
both men and
is.
women.
Yes, to both men and women, as far as women changing, they're gaining weight. Men are getting moobs, the man boobs, and not being able to perform. But oftentimes, I think at that point, I do believe that it's more the man that's putting it on himself, saying, "Oh, I can't perform. I need to perform. Oh, I need to do this for my wife or my girlfriend, and I can't." Rather than, I think oftentimes I've talked to some of my friends where they're at that age where they finally understood. The wife said, "You know what, honey? We've been married for 35 years. It doesn't matter. We've had that part of our life, and let's move on. We're still together." But a lot of people don't accept
Yes,
that.
you're right. You're right. And you know what? There's also a point where yeah, one might have in general more drive than the other,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like because when a woman's in menopause, most times her drive goes down because everything else is happening to her body, right? Her hormones,
Yeah.
it's unstable. Dopamine is down. It's all connected. Estrogen, dopamine, it's all connected. Cortisol, it connect dots, and it's just like this circle. But for intimacy, it can go either way, both ways, or one or the other. Like, without being too revealing, about, my personal life, it's always been pretty good. And actually, even through the worst times, we've talked about it, and we definitely weren't as bad as some others. I have, again, see women commented where they haven't had sex for a year, and or months, that kind of thing. And we kind of looked at each other and said, even at the worst of times, it might have been like 3 weeks. kind of,
Well, I, I want to
kind
throw
of thing.
something out there.
But
I just want to say something about that because every couple, every individual is different. Somebody might say, we do it 5 times a week. And then if we do it 4, that's off. Others will say, you know what? We do it 3 times a year. They have other
yep,
stimuli, other stimulations for each other, whether it be physical or mental. So I don't want people to think that you have to have a certain amount of uh, intercourse, lovemaking, because you don't.
no.
You go through certain things.
And you know what? And it's important to have intimacy, right?
Hmm.
But intimacy is different from lovemaking, right?
Right.
Can be totally, there's times to be totally intimate with your other, your spouse, partner, whatever, without making love, so to speak. And a lot of times that can be, more special than the actual act itself, right?
Right.
So you have to find what grooves for you. One of the biggest things is communication, right? You got to help each other, whether it's counseling or just depending on your own relationship. Sometimes I found a counselor, therapist, whatever, when it's somebody who's neutral, and you're just there to kind of, in some cases, even argue whatever in front of them if you're together, or if you're by yourself. Like, sometimes I like to go just because I can unload onto somebody that's, not going to judge me, is unbiased. And then you're like, I feel like, a load's off kind of thing. But that being said, which I don't love that statement, but one of the things that I discovered was, and I mentioned in the book, is that as I was going through my own metamorphosis using tools like meditation, which in meditation lowers your stress level, right? Calms your hormones, things like that, gets you nice and relaxed. Then you can kind of, calmly kind of move on from there. In my case, I started to visualize and different things like that, and then journal. I was doing a whole bunch of things just because I was looking for a better path. And I just want to mention that I was on hormone therapy. I did take hormone therapy for 2 years. And the reason I went off was because for me personally, hormone therapy is replaces, right? And my doctor at the time had told me that the longer you are on it, the harder it is to come off.
Okay.
Because just like anything, when you're on something long term, your body becomes reliant on it. So if you're constantly pumping in these synthetic hormones, you're going to stop producing it yourself.
Right.
And again,
Now,
this
I
is where
want to,
science and there are some women who are okay. I will take it for 10, 15, 20 years as long as it's okay. But then again, we don't know, there's controversy over the breast cancer, thing. And I do know somebody who did tell me, don't do it because I did get breast cancer. So, it was a tough decision. And in some cases, it may have made the road a little worse, so to speak, a little more difficult for a few years. But then once it clicked and I woke up, I woke up and said, girl, what are you doing? What are you doing? You need to take hold of your life. Get your shit together, right? This has been long
right.
enough. It was 5 years. 5 years was long enough to be suffering in a depressive state,
Wow.
So, and all the other things that go along with it. My doctor prescribed medication, because a lot of women experience, one of the reasons they don't want to, be that intimate is because things aren't the same there. Right?
Yeah.
Things change there too. So, and I did have that happen to me. So I went to my, gynecologist, and she prescribed me some medication. But one of the side effects of the medication was frequent urinary and yeast infections. So, so I'm taking medication to try and make it better. But then I don't know how long I was, and who wants to be on antibiotic after antibiotic? It's crazy, So I will say that for any woman out there who wants to know, my gynecologist did recommend this, and it was the best advice or thing she could have suggested I do, and that was coconut oil.
It's good for everything, inside and outside.
It is. It is. And it doesn't have to be. I mean, I buy the tub at cost. I'm not saying I use it all. The tub, I still have it from I think 2 years. But it's naturally and has natural antibacterial properties. It can be used daily. It can be used for intimacy. Or just like I said, daily use. If
Yeah.
there's issues. And you can cook with it, so it's a
Right.
great what is it, medium chain triglyceride as well. So yeah, coconut oil is one of the best natural, I'll say it, lubricants that you can.
Yeah, it came out of your mouth. You said it. But don't
There,
bathe
I
in it.
said it. I said it.
You know,
Yes, it's one of the most
but you know,
natural.
it's, it's funny, Lisa. You're embarrassed to say certain other things, but then these other things, you just come right out and you say it.
I'm trying to be diplomatic, but then sometimes
This is
you
an
know,
adult program. It's not a G-rated show.
you know,
I want to
yeah.
roll it back just 1 second because you kind of talked about or touched on it about meditation, and from your book, The Menopause MindShift. Is this part of those like 3 tools that help transform your life? Is that meditation part of one of the tools?
Yes, the first actually,
Okay.
meditation, visualization, and either journal. There was a whole bunch. So journaling, listening to Solfeggio. There's just those are various tools that I surrounded myself with in my plan to get myself to where I am now, so to speak,
Yeah.
to unleash my queen, to let her out, and that's why the tiara is out, because we just gotta do it.
Good. I was going to just say, Lisa, you just finally earned your tiara on this show because you've said it. No, as much as we're laughing about this, again, it is a serious thing for women going through menopause, and for men as well. And hopefully, I mean, I think you're doing a great job. You're taking that first step of you've written a book. You're letting people know, hey, this is what you can expect, and here's my experience, or experience is both husband and wife. So, you know, here's a
It's been
roadmap.
really
Take it if you want.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I it's funny because along with the self love and all that kind of stuff, and going back to that just for a minute, a lot of women lose that, during this time, because the way the mind actually goes, it just because it's actually it's hormonally, but even chemically, right? That happens, and we're gaining weight, and we feel we lost our drive, excuse me, and it just can leave some women in a space that is really difficult to survive in. And I was shocked at the amount of women that still are. May in the U.S. I think it might be different than in Canada. I'm in Canada, and more doctors promote the use of hormone therapy here. But again, that's a very personal choice. Like I said, I tried it, but and any doctor out there, I actually started to get nervous because I seeing a lot of doctor this, science based, and even to be able to talk about it, and to get in and onto some media, they want to only talk about the statistics and the science and things like that, and this is an alternative thing. But I started to think about it today, and I thought, well, science tells us that our body is energy, and energy, is in motion, and it depends where we take that motion, right? And I just thought, what if we marry the two? And I guess that's what I tried to do, because we have healthcare as well, working out with weights. When I started to do that, that was one of the best natural things to do to increase your estrogen, dopamine, your happy hormones. And then diet too. You should try and eat a little better, even though we might not want to. But
Yeah.
sugar. I don't know why sugar, caffeine. It causes hot flashes. It makes no sense, but it does.
Uh,
Anyway.
well, sugar and caffeine cause flashes for me. A flashback of, oh, I got to go have more. uh, Again, this topic of menopause is really important, and as you're saying, barring that it's anything like cancer and things like that, it's a natural part of life. Unfortunately, we go through it, men and women. Um, but again, I'm going to simplify it by saying it's okay. It's everybody's going to go through it at some point in time and eventually. So just stay
Hmm.
true to yourself and love yourself. Um,
Yes.
and I know that
That's
I'm
one of
making it
the
sound
key
easier than
things
it is, but
that I discovered. Yes, loving yourself, loving yourself. We lose sight of that. I lost sight of that, and I had to dig deep. And it was kind of a progressive thing. It wasn't something I
yeah,
thought about. Oh yeah, um, but because we a lot of times tie self love with our outward appearance, right? How we
right.
look. Um, and and we got to stop doing that. We got to know what's in here. What's actually, my husband often says, he'll say this to me. He says, "What you look on the outside," he goes, okay, I'm gonna divulge. He might not like it. He said, to hit. He goes, to me, you're the hottest thing going. You are the hottest thing going to me. I don't care if, you've gained weight, all that kind of stuff. It's how you present yourself, right?
Yes.
How you present yourself is what is attractive,
And
not all the
people.
physicalness. I mean, that can be a plus, right?
Hmm.
Um, and I have to thank him for that, because that's a sign of, somebody who really loves you.
Yeah, and going back to what we kind of touched on at the very beginning is you yourself are more critical oftentimes than somebody else is. And again, I think I'm just going to generalize and just say you would never have thought during that period that I'm beautiful. But your husband is always saying and thinking to himself, she is the hottest thing out there. So, you know, just realize that. And I think one other thing for me is people need to stay active mentally and physically. So whatever it is,
Yes.
like you said, exercise and weight is a great stress reducer. It's great to level out your hormones. Not all the time, but a lot of the times, and good for estrogen and good for testosterone.
Yeah. Here was something that I learned along the way, and that is that too much exercise or the wrong kind of exercise can actually increase our cortisol level and stress hormones. So that was
Yeah.
something new because I was doing a lot of cardio in the past, thinking I was at the age where I need to keep my heart healthy, right? Doing, but then the more I hired a trainer, I think it was last year and that, and it was more about weightlifting, because you started to lift weights a little bit to just keep that bone density. But then the more I kind of did a little research and learned about it, it's like, you know what? The weightlifting is what you need to do more than the cardio. And the kind of cardio you should be doing is just like walking,
Hmm.
because walking reduces stress, which reduces cortisol. Again, connecting all those dots, the one
I'm
thing, the
glad you
circle.
said that and corrected me on this because you do need to be careful about age, physical condition, and things like that as far as exercise. Exercising will speed up certain things, certain metabolisms. Exercise does induce stress, like you said, and that's one thing that you want
Right,
to try to avoid at this period in time, at this point in time.
right.
Um,
Yeah, it depends. You're right. It depends physical and where you start. Where you're at to begin with, health wise. Because
mhm.
I even tried HIT for a while, HIT training,
Oh,
right? Like 20-minute HIT. Because that was the thing. You get your metabolism up, and that was supposed to be the new great thing. Or cycling. Spinning. And you'd burn and burn and burn. But no, it was overstressing. Overstress.
yeah.
That combined with personal stress, right? Stress in your body, stress in the personal stress, it was just a shit show.
You, you see, you're afraid to say certain things, but you just come right out and say it. But you're absolutely right. At
I
that
think I
point,
say that in the book. I say, there was a point where I wasn't sure whether what I was experiencing was just my hormones, was just me, or was it all a total mindfuck? I actually say that in the book. I use that word. I say that because, yeah, it, uh, it came to a point where it's like, I was convinced. I was like, my personal stress is doing this, right? But then it's like, but is it? Is it just, you know, the menopause?
Yeah.
Um, and then I believe I said the jury's still out.
Well, I just want to say thank you very much for all the information. Folks, once again, this is Lisa Triggs, and she has a book out called The Menopause MindShift. And you can go to her website, and it's themenopausemindshift.com. And there's a lot of great information out there. And the book has a lot of fantastic information on tools and how to help transform your life and how to, get through this. Again, this is her experience. It's Lisa's experience. And, I'm sure that people are going to find similarities, or they're going to be able to understand what they have to look forward to.
Or not if they start early, right?
Yes.
If
Yep.
you begin it with because one of the things I thought about many times was what's the difference between why are some women having no problem and other women's having severe problem? What's that difference? Is it lifestyle? Is it relationship, um, personal stress levels, that kind of thing. What makes it easier for some than others?
Well,
That's a big question. I haven't necessarily. I mean, you can guess and say, oh, it's got to be lifestyle or something, like that. But is it? I don't know. I would love
yeah.
to know the answer to that. Why is it a breeze for someone and they say, no, I haven't, I had nothing. The doctor said, oh, you're in, and I was like, oh, okay. And I'm like, oh my God, UBITCH.
Uh,
Maybe it's mental attitude. Maybe to begin with, maybe, it goes back to the self-confidence, self-love. Maybe,
mhm.
maybe those people who are more aware of that have an easier
Yeah.
time than those who are not, you know,
Well, and I think that's the
don't know.
perfect thing. It's people ask yourself that question. What's your lifestyle like? What's your stress level like? What is, what are you indulging in that might be too much? So, like I said, a lot of questions to ask yourself. So, again, this has been great. I've learned quite a bit.
I'm glad. I'm glad. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's so I guess the book came out of wanting to share my personal story about how I did this, how I unleashed my inner queen, right? So the book is the menopause mind shift, and then tag is how I unleashed my inner queen, and you can too. And that's by taking the time and doing that inner work, and slowing down, finding the time. People say, oh, I'm too busy, right? But it's like anything else. If you want to do it, if you care about doing it, you will find the time,
Yes.
and even if it's 20 minutes, half hour, I mean, most people like to start their day, with a few minutes of meditation, but it doesn't have to be. You can do it at night, maybe before you're going to bed or as you're going to sleep, it just calms your whole system down, and it's a place to start.
Yes. Well, Lisa, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.